Let's bring in George Tsilis, senior markets correspondent here. George, we're talking Micron. Stock got upgraded today. George, it seems like every portion of their business is seeing prices come down, demand still waning as far as memory chips go. But this stock's had a nice run so far in 2023. Is this all on the back of AI or expectations?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, you're right. If you look at the last year, the stock is higher by 32%. But I actually looked at the 10-year financials on an annualized basis. This company lost $2.9 billion in the last 4 quarters, which is actually 10 times the amount they lost back in 2016, where they lost about $290 million. So it's been a very bad year for Micron. But the stock price itself doesn't really reflect that. And I think it has to do with the fact that the company went in the situation where they had just-in-time inventory to just-in-case, where they had a huge inventory build, while at the same time, of course, average selling prices have declined. And if you look at their sales last year, they were down about 57%, and their EBITDA was down 79%. But I think this is a situation where the stock price has been moving higher based upon expectations of a cycle of refresh and higher demand, as well as moving off excess inventory. Deutsche Bank actually increased their rating on the stock to a buy from hold, and they've got an $85 price target from $65. And they actually see 2 of the tailwinds associated with inventory reductions. I think there's also, in my view, a computer or a server, if you will, also refresh cycle that we're probably going to be seeing in the next year or so. Then artificial intelligence. I mean, you can't have artificial intelligence unless you have DRAM chips or dynamic random access memory chips for computing. And so I think that is another catalyst that's embedded behind Micron Technologies, alongside the increase in, of course, computer demand, which I think is going to improve the CPU demands alongside companies like Intel, which, if you look at that stock as well, has been performing nicely this year.
George, this is a PC and a smartphone story, isn't it, with Micron? PC shipments, first quarter 2023 shipments down 30% year over year. Smartphone sales down 15% year over year. They get a recovery in those 2 things, like you said. We're now, 3 years into a cycle where people are going to start changing things out. If they get a recovery there, is that why they're getting some upgrades here?
I think so. I mean, I'm just going to say, look at the price performance of the stock relative to last year versus the financials, which I mentioned. In the last 10 years, they had the worst 4 quarters combined, the last 4. First half of 2023 and also the back half of 22 is really bad for Micron. But the stock really found a bottom, around the October period, where the market did as well. So I think there's really an element of the demand associated with servers right now. I think that is the backbone for artificial intelligence, which people sort of miss. Computer demand is going to be higher, as well as, I think, smartphones. I think all of these things are moving together, are lining up for Micron, which are going to be positive for not only reducing inventory, improving average selling prices, but there are some hangups you have to consider too, because there are some export restraints on memory chip manufacturers like Micron, which is a U.S.-based company, but 52% of their sales in the United States. And also China. China is also implementing some cybersecurity concerns with the iPhone, maybe in Micron. And Hong Kong and China represent about 25% of sales, either directly or indirectly through third parties in that area of the country. So Hong Kong and China. So that is a concern you have to keep in mind with Micron. But lastly, I'll say this. If you look at the DRAM suppliers globally, Micron is one of the 3 largest. The other 2 are the Koreans. Samsung and SK Hynix are the other 2 major suppliers globally. So there's only 3, and Micron is certainly one of them.
Yeah, they did see AI servers, as they start ramping that up, they're a little bit behind the company stated, but AI server requires 6 to 8 times the DRAM content and triple the NAND content of a traditional server. Right. So I think maybe that's why you're seeing a lot of the expectations getting hiked here for this company moving forward. All right, great stuff, George. Appreciate it. That's George Tsilis, senior markets correspondent here. Thanks, George. Breaking down the Micron for us.